You're listening to 89.3 FM and HD1 Evanston, Chicago, WNUR. And you know what it is. Every second Wednesday, we talk about all things house with the best house DJs, the best up and coming house DJs. And I am so excited for our guests today. Today, we have Hiroko Yamamura. Hiroko, welcome to the
Thank
studio.
you for having me. Excellent. I'm going to move this mic. Is that
Yeah,
right?
get comfortable. We're here to talk for a
It's very
second.
deluxe.
How are you?
I'm doing good. What am I supposed to do? I'm going to look over here.
Yeah,
I'm
look,
back and
I
forth.
know.
I'm
Look,
doing great. Weather is fantastic. Yeah, it's super cool to be here. I haven't been in this studio for quite a long time. So it's
welcome
looking all
back.
modern and cool and stuff. So thank you for
Yeah,
having me.
of course. Why don't you tell us more about yourself? How did you get, started in techno, and what are some of your inspirations in that?
Wow. Um, so kind of really got introduced to dance music through Chicago's industrial scene.
Mm,
Started off listening more to kind of rock, maybe the Nine Inch Nails kind of stuff,
yeah,
and then slowly, as that music guess became slightly more mainstream, electronic music became a bit more interesting and diverse versus kind of the standard thing you're listening to on the radio.
yeah.
Luckily, we were partying late 90s, early 2000s, and in Chicago, in the Midwest, there was quite a rave scene. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
the rave scene was really where we heard new music. The DJs really catered to the taste. So we walked into stuff not really knowing genres and not really
Yeah,
knowing
just
what was what.
experiencing.
So we were very much at the mercy of who was playing that night.
Yeah, talk more. I'd like to hear more about this Midwest rave scene. What do you remember about some of those like early days or your early days getting introduced to techno and house?
Gosh.
What was that like?
Well, it's blurry for unmentionable reasons, but yeah, I think because it was such a subculture at the time, you really resonated with the people that went.
Yeah.
The people that went to raves and clubs at the time were more of a small group, so you would see them um, the same parties every week.
Yeah.
So you just slowly become friends and find other common interests besides the dance music. And like I mentioned, because this is pre-internet, the way we would hear music was we would have to go to these events,
Yeah.
or we'd have to go to a particular record store, and the record buyer or the person working there would kind of steer us in a direction because there's hundreds of thousands of records there. You can't pick through everything. So it's a really important part of kind of discovering was the record stores.
Yeah, I could imagine, rave spaces serving as a place for discovery, but also if it's something I hear from my friends who are adamant, rave goers, that there's a really strong community in rave and rave music. Um, can you talk a little bit more on that? The community of rave and techno from your experience?
Sure, I think Chicago being kind of not on either coast, we always suffered the not coast syndrome where we kind of got some things later, but sh- techno and house were an absolute Midwest creation. So that was something we very much bonded to, and you can trace back many sounds to the Midwest, including house from Chicago, the techno from Detroit, and then Milwaukee and Madison had their own like hardcore and drum and bass scenes, and they're really distinct and it's kind of tribal at the time where you really kind of said, "Well, I'm into this genre," and you stuck to that because.
You represented it,
you represented it because we were corny, and that's what you do when you're a kid, right? And you gravitate towards the edgiest thing. But I think we're really lucky in Chicago because we were able to get the techno, the hardcore, and the house from the source. And I was just talking to my friend about this. Being from Chicago and growing up around house, it is so common that you almost feel like you have to go against the grain in some way, especially when you're like an edgy teenager trying to be cool. So, yeah, my my relationship to house and techno, I think, was slow and gradual. But we're also very lucky that a lot of the early artists from Chicago are very generous about sharing how they make music, sharing what music they're playing, um, not kind of being snobby superstars. They're just cool people that like the same music.
That just love this. That just
Yeah,
genuinely love this.
You go to other places, and that's not necessarily the way things work. And so I think we're really lucky here.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that about going to other places. My next question was going to be, what has been outside of the Midwest, the home? What's been one of your favorite places to play house and techno that you really felt like, wow, the people here are vibing with me?
I think my favorite places are where it's a bit of a challenge, right?
Okay.
So where you are not necessarily playing what people want to hear, but you're playing a little bit of introducing them to new things. So obviously, if you're coming from Chicago and playing in Europe or somewhere not Chicago, there's an expectation of a Chicago sound.
Yeah.
And I think for me, when we kind of stretch what that definition is, it's not just classic Chicago house or what people might envision as Chicago. There's a lot of things, including Chicago techno, that was unique to Chicago sound due to the artists that were involved. So, yeah, long story short, my favorite place to play, it's almost anywhere, right? It can be, depending on the night, the same club could have different people. And so I think when people just come with an open mind and want to hear good music, it can work anywhere.
Yeah, I really like that. I resonate with that as just no matter where you are, if the crowd is good, then that's all you need. If the crowd is open, that's all you need. And you mentioned the artists and some of the DJs, the producers that influence the sound. Are there any that come to your mind, whether past, present, that you feel like had an impact on you and your growth as a DJ?
Yeah, absolutely. We coming up, we were lucky enough to meet artists like Mike Dearborn, Delta 9, Phantom 45, DJ Hyperactive, and every one of them was doing something unique and was really apt to share with these audiences. And it wasn't just us attending as fans, it was a lot more kind of participatory. So I don't know if I'm supposed to look at it.
Hey, if you're watching us on Twitch, welcome. Um, yeah, I hear you on the idea of teaching and spreading the love and the knowledge, not just kind of hoarding, gatekeeping.
It's almost like that concept to me is almost a new concept because I guess back then, even before lots of streaming services, we were more hunting for that music versus we wanted more DJs versus well, there's only X amount of DJs doing this thing. There were very few specialists who were actually dedicated to the craft and doing innovative things. So luckily that has grown exponentially due to technology and access. But at the time, the people I mentioned, as well as others that I'm sure I'm missing, they were it. They are how we found out about everything.
Yeah, the DJs really do push the culture for whatever sound it is. And I want to hear about the ARC Fest that you're performing in September 2nd. How are you feeling about that? Are you excited to be performing?
I'm really excited. This is actually going to be my second year playing. Last year was really great. Historically, Chicago has only had EDM type of festivals. And it seemed like that made sense at the time, right? Like house music is about going to clubs, it's about more intimate settings, and who goes to festivals? Kids go to festivals, right? Who wants to be in the sun? Kids. And kids like EDM and all this stuff that I might not necessarily vibe with. But I think festivals nowadays are proving that wrong, that younger generation do like similar music. They do kind of subscribe to the same subcultures and have really high standards of taste. there's more minutia to kind of dig through now, right? It's less catered, right? Because when you turn on anything, you hear so much stuff. So ARC really focuses in on the house and techno aspects, and I was somebody who didn't necessarily think it would work, and I was pleasantly surprised that last year it was such a great event. So
that's a good feeling. That is
coming back this year. I'm pretty excited.
Yay! I'm excited for you. Um, yeah, I was reading on their website that their mission is kind of like to blend sort of what we do here, kind of like the old and the new, more kind of legendary DJs alongside some of the new names. I saw Carl Cox on there, and I was like, oh, okay.
Right, so exciting.
I was like, wow, like these are some really dope names along with
the festival is also really lucky that some of the talent buyers who are involved in the bookings have long relationships historically with Chicago. They're some of the innovators of Chicago's dance scene, as well as they've fostered these long-term relationships with artists that maybe 20 years ago they were just starting off, but now they're superstars. But because of that relationship, they're really excited to come back to art, and so it's nice to be part of that.
Yeah, that sounds like a really great festival DJ community to be with. And I'll kind of wrap up our conversation with you, being someone who I would consider very legendary in this scene. What's some advice you have for some of those newcomers, either newcomers who are thinking about dipping their toes into DJing or just dipping their toes into the techno and house scene?
I would say, this is a conversation that I have with myself often, is that all you can do is, whether as a producer, DJ, participant, or fan, you can just kind of genuinely do things. People resonate with kind of authenticity and emotion, and you really have no choice whether or not someone else likes it.
Yeah.
So if you,
it's very vulnerable.
Yeah, you can think what you're doing is the best thing in the world and everyone should love it, but you can't force. It's like going into the lunchroom and wanting to be able to sit at the popular table.
On the first day of school.
Yeah, everybody wants to sit at the cool table, but you go to your own table with the nerds, and that ends up being the cool table later. So it's just there's a bit of kind of entropy and chaos in that, where sometimes things go really well, sometimes they don't, and you have some element of control. And what I always tell people is, if that attention comes to you at that moment, it's like being a actor discovered in a mall, right? They see you and they're like, you have to be ready at that moment. So it's about preparation when opportunities arise, if you want to take them. So.
Ooh, that snaps to that. That was I felt that. That was really great advice. Where can we follow and support you?
Well, you can check out my Instagram, which is not really a music page. It's just lots of things.
The Mean Queen and Techno Machine. That's what it is.
Hiroko __ Yamamura, YAMAMURA. The page is sometimes shadow banned, so you'll have to type the whole thing out. But you can find out events there, and some funny anime jokes and stuff like that.
I truly enjoy the content that I see. Some like the memes, I'm just like,
Thank you.
Yeah, I needed this.
I appreciate it.
A nice break. Well, awesome. We're going to get right into this set with Hiroko Yamamura, and thank you for sitting down with us. I'm going to go ahead and set us up with a live stream, so don't go anywhere.
Don't go anywhere.
Get right into it.
Alrighty. Is the camera still live?
Yeah.
Alright.
Alrighty. Let's get these angles right. And you are good to start.
Okay. Yeah, you guys need to be on camera.
between lovers, we are to belong. My home to your home, until we had each other, we're strangers. There's a reason we use such codes, riddles and toils, rather than soul talk. I know we were fun, things could be done, and the truth wouldn't matter. Their eyes are red, my dear friend. It's not like this.
I'll give you my heart and the rest is up to you. You ain't no good for me, I know it's true. But you don't have to pay, 'cause I do it for the thrill. For the rush, I do it for the pain. For your touch, but I only when it's too much. If I survive, baby, you're the one. You're the one. I feel like I'm walking the tightrope of love in your circus cage. Flower would be my last day, even though around me. So I'ma take my time, go with the flow, can't get to and fro. You gotta face that. Just can't say no to, just can't say no to you. You know I want you there, you know I do. I'll give you my heart and the rest is up to you. You ain't no good for me, I know it's true. But you don't have to pay, 'cause I do it for the thrill. For the rush, I do it for the thrill. For your touch, but I only when it's too much. If I survive, baby, you're the one. You're the one.
Thank y'all for tuning in with us. We are getting into the studio. We are signing off. Thank you, Twitch, Facebook,